Hello, I'm Lindsay Von Tisch, and we're back with the Bishop Fox DEF CON livestream, where we're learning about the pitfalls of trying to run a technically complicated setup at a hacker convention. And for any of you in the audience who want to be able to mess with our audio stream next, we are giving away 3 Flipper Zeros. I'm very excited to be hosting our panel, Mastering Your Tools, with some wonderful guests from Bishop Fox. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting with you, Laurent.
What's up? I'm Laurent Gray, Senior Security Consultant at Bishop Fox, an amazing rapper, a generally handsome man, PhD student. I'm everywhere. I'm doing everything. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. And Josh, what do you have to say for yourself, about yourself?
I don't know if I can say generally handsome, but no, I work at Bishop Fox. I'm on the capability development team, and I lead a team of vulnerability researchers. And you can see some of our most recent work. I'm going to plug the blog on Bishop Fox's blog. I don't rap, but I do play Dungeons and Dragons. It's pretty cool.
It's one of my favorite pastimes as well. David, how are you doing today?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is David Vargas. I'm a senior consultant at Bishop Fox with the Red team and Laurent's team there. Hard to follow the PhD student thing. No, nothing too exciting. I'm here in Vegas for our talk on OSDP, breaking OSDP with Dan here. And outside of Bishop Fox, I live in a very small mountain town. So that's about it.
Ooh.
That's awesome. You know, you said you didn't have much and then, revealed that you have an incredible talk coming up with Dan right here.
Yeah, hey, I'm Dan Petro, a senior security engineer now. I actually have engineer in my title these days. I was a longtime pen tester at Bishop Fox, so been doing that for a long time. I only have a master's degree, so that's disappointing. But yeah, we have, Dave and I will be giving a talk at DEF CON tomorrow morning.
That's going to be really exciting. I'm very excited to see that. And first of all, I have to comment on how excited I am to be able to speak with so many fellow Foxes here today. Dan, you've been at Bishop Fox a long time and have created so many memorable tools like the Unredactor, Rick Moat, and the PRNG Twister. Can you speak a little bit about the tool that you're releasing at DEF CON and Black Hat alongside David here? What inspired it and what does it do?
Yeah, so this all came about as part of a pen test, actually. So one of the things we do, part of the Red team, team that David is on, is breaking into secure facilities. It's easily one of the coolest things we get to do at Bishop Fox. And one part of that is the RFID badge reader systems. So any secure facility you might encounter is likely to have one of these badge reader systems. You're probably familiar with them. Has a little red light on it. You tap a card to it, lets you into the building. And one way of attacking them that has existed before our research is you get a Phillips head screwdriver, you walk up to the reader, you unhinge it to access the little wires behind the reader, and then insert a covert little listening device. It's like a little tiny 1 inch by 1 inch piece of hardware called an ESP key, and that will capture all of the card numbers as they go from the reader to the back-end controller that's inside the building. And so we were doing this as part of a pen test, and the attack wasn't working. We kind of had no idea what was going wrong with it. So after a while, we just determined that it was actually a new protocol that was being kind of rolled out into production just recently. That is called OSDP. That's meant to be like an encrypted protocol that is going to take over the old school Wiegand protocol that the current installation. Most installations today are still Wiegand, but people are moving towards OSDP now. So I have a background in cryptographic protocols, so I figured why not take a look at this thing, and the contents are the contents of our talk, basically, that the protocol leaves much to be desired.
And David, how did you get involved with this research? What sort of drove you down this rabbit hole?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So first off, some background is I found out about Bishop Fox many years ago because of the Tastic RFID reader that Fran developed, right, a couple of years ago, and that was I always thought that was a cool project. So Dan posted in a channel back in December saying something about electronics, a question about electronics now, In a past life, about 10 years ago, I used to mess a lot with robotics and electronics and I used to like building a lot of stuff with that. And so Dan explained the research to me, which I kind of found it cool to get involved with something, go full circle, like help develop something along RFID, which is what caught my attention in Bishop Fox in the first place many years ago. So yeah, no, he posted a question about electronics. I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm down to help with this. And yeah, it's been a interesting few months, brushing all the raw stuff I had from not touching electronics for 10 years. But yeah, it's worked out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly in order to make a practical pen testing tool, it's one thing to find a vulnerability in a protocol, but you actually need to capture that and put it down into a tiny form factor, like a 1-inch by 1-inch gizmo that you can insert behind the reader. Because I can make this work on my laptop, but I can't take my laptop and shove it into the wall behind the little RFID reader. So needed to enlist the help of a nice hacker that knows something about electrical engineering. So
Yeah.
That's incredibly exciting. And then Josh, you're a part of our capabilities development team here at Bishop Fox, which is dedicated to creating new tools to improve the efficiency and effectiveness for people like me hacking into client systems. Can you share an example of some tools and technology you've worked on and the impact that that's had in covering vulnerabilities or enhancing security posture?
Yeah. So my recent passion has been kind of the intersection of vulnerability research and vulnerability intelligence. And that kind of like the difference between I'm going to start hacking something and I know what to hack. The tool that I've built is called SploitsDB. It's just an internal tool that I've created for our teams so that we can take the customer asset management data that we have in Cosmos, the vast target data that we have, we can start really characterizing and understanding what technologies they're running and what technologies are important for us to target testing on. It's been just a different way to characterize our customers. And honestly, yeah, that has been one of my loves for the last 6 to 8 months, and it's been really cool. We have this ability to tie in the targets that we see, the technologies they're running, the vulnerabilities that are on those technologies, if they have public exploits, if the technology is listed in SysAkev or the vulnerability is listed in SysAkev. And so we can start to take a look and characterize our customers in more of what they should focus on in maybe patching or what our operators should look at and say, I know I can go after that. I know that a customer really needs to care about this. And if there's not a vulnerability that exists out there, or sorry, if there is a vulnerability that exists out there that no one's exploited before, then we can look at that and go, do we think we could create the exploit for that? Do we think that customers should care about this? Are there enough customers running this technology that we should care about this? There's just a ton of different ways to look at the data that our customers have and look at it in the lens of vulnerabilities. And that's just what I aim to do with this Swiss Army knife tool that I've passed off to our operator team.
That's such exciting work because it sounds like it's going to be helping pen testers, prioritize on time-limited engagements as well as throughout the entire company sort of highlight areas where we need more research and development.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's really nice to watch you. You took something that I said in a couple of paragraphs. And you're like, that's the one sentence that you meant though, right? Yeah, it is. No, it was really good. That's a great summary of it. And that is the goal. At some point, it would be, the dream is to expose this data out to customers. But for now, just having it in and handing it to the operations team so that they know what to go after and looking at my team and we know what to create exploits for. We're already finding and prioritizing vulnerabilities. And finding things that, really old software on a customer's attack surface that's worth just an operator taking a look at. It's an easy thing to say, hey, this is really old. Maybe someone hasn't loved this software in a while. Maybe that's something an attacker should look at.
Yeah, that's really important work.
Thank you.
And then, Laurent, you created the Azure tool Storm Spotter when you were with Microsoft, and last year you created DumpScan. Can you share a little bit of backstory behind the creation of those tools, as well as any future plans for anything you've got coming up in regards to tool development?
Yeah. So StormSpotter was made because, well, I didn't write the original version of it. So when I got to Microsoft on the Azure Red Team, there was a tool that was just sort of sitting in a repo somewhere that nobody was really using much, sort of, not really, called Asset Hound, right? That was the internal name, because it was sort of built like Bloodhound is, right? It's a graphing tool, so you can visualize Azure Active Directory or Entra ID, whatever it's called now, with the resources that you could provision in Azure. And so like you could see the relationships between them. It was mostly just virtual machines and key vaults and like storage accounts at the time, I think. But I was also doing some other work at Microsoft at the time, and I sort of needed to decouple like how the tool was written, because originally it would just take all the data from Azure, then put it into a database like directly. But I was like, I need them to be separate, sort of like how, again, Bloodhound is built, where you have the collector, then you ingest it into the database, and then you can go view it. And so I saw that tool. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want to work on this. And so I was given responsibility for it. I turned Asset Hound into StormSpotter. I think maybe I released it too early because personally, I don't know a lot of hackers who like writing front-end web stuff, and it was kind of trash. Honestly, it was terrible. I wouldn't use the first version of that myself, but I put it out there because just the concept of saying that, hey, you can have a graphing tool that can show this kind of stuff was really interesting to a lot of people. So I reworked it again. It looks way better now, but it is sort of still in limbo as I write the new version of it that is not under the Microsoft repo and now under the Bishop Fox repo. It's open source, so I can say that. I'm not stealing anything. So yeah, so I like writing the sort of open source stuff. And so the goal is to be able to provide just a big picture of everything that's in Azure, because the original version of that was written by the guy who also wrote Cartography, which is I think owned by Lyft or somebody, I don't recall. But he wrote the original version of Asset Hound. He moved on to that, and he didn't include any Azure stuff in it. And I was like, cool, this gives me an opportunity to take that and just sort of own the whole thing. So there'll be another version of that coming out. I'm currently working on it very, very slowly as I work on other stuff too. And as far as dump scan goes, that project came up because, again, at Microsoft, there was an operation in which we had to extract some binary objects out of a process. It was like some RSA keys, but they weren't in the typical like begin RSA private key, like the little header thing, right? Which is what a lot of people do. A lot of people tend to look for just like common strings when they pull memory dumps. But the goal of dump scan was to be able to pull out binary structures. So you sort of define what they look like and then go look for them. That project worked really well for that particular operation. And I know it's been used by a couple of people outside as well, and they found some use for it. That project is currently on hold because I am turning that into my dissertation topic, and so I need a tool to release. So that one is on hold. It'll be done next year once I'm done with my dissertation, and I'll have like a whole framework and suite, so you can sort of just define arbitrary structures and be able to look for them. But it's mostly going to focus on Windows internals and Linux, or I guess common frameworks and libraries that are used for Linux, like OpenSSL and stuff like that. So that's the goal.
How do you declaratively define like that structure that you're looking for?
A lot of reverse engineering.
Yeah.
The Windows ones, right, you can do some of them, but like, for example, like we know like bcrypt looks like, right?
Yeah.
You know that those are sort of defined open source. Microsoft released a library called symcrypt, which sort of defines some of the other libraries, or the other structures. But underneath that, there's more structures that aren't like publicly accessible. And so I'm sitting in Binary Ninja all day, working my way through these different structures and trying to figure out what they look like because the debug symbols are not publicly available. So once those are sort of defined, and like Mimikatz sort of does the same thing, right? It looks for certain text strings, and that's sort of how it defines the spot, but that's maybe not the best way to do it if you just like look around a little more. But yeah, it's it's a lot of reverse engineering. Yeah.
That's incredibly cool and sounds like just a lot of work. I've got a really quick final question. Developing these cutting edge tools understandably requires continuous innovation. what do you all use to stay up to date on the latest technologies and find new projects to work on?
Maybe I'll start. Finding new projects to work on, I tend to cross interests. So like, I always find an intersection of like video games and hacking, or like, I want to try to get into hardware, like, and hacking. And so like a lot of my projects are like just the thing that I decided that I wanted to get better at, like in research form, and invariably what happens is I'll like find something that there's not a tool for yet. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to be the guy that writes this tool. That's just basically how Untwister happened, where like, but it's like there's lots of times where like as a pen tester, I really wanted to be able to like brute force, like enumerate the various values of an insecure RNG, and like I was surprised to see that there wasn't a tool to do that. And so me and Joe DeMasi wrote a tool to do that. I think that research topics just kind of fall out of the sky at me sometimes, but I guess that's how it happens.
Yeah, so in my case, it's usually a result of client engagements. So I'll be on something and I'll spot something, some sort of technology that looks vulnerable, and I know I want to poke at it more. And so, yeah, I end up going down this rabbit hole, and I tend to not to, and I should change this, but I don't release a lot of the stuff that I do right. I kind of keep it to myself, which I should probably change that. But yeah, it's something either that I see consistently across client environments that I'm like, hey, I need to figure out how to break this, or it's, or well, with Dan, in the case of somebody approaches me and says, hey, you want to do something like that? I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. So.
That's cool. The way that I really choose what projects to work on is more the CD team has a history of just supporting ops in Cosmos. Cool shirt, great flag. But a lot of times operators will have very niche problems or really expansive problems, I guess, also. And there's just a lot to choose from and what to work on next. The passion project for vulnerability intelligence and research has more been around me wanting to create a team of vulnerability researchers. So seeing where I want to take, where my interests lie, and then just choosing what to do next has been the greatest way of choosing next projects. But also staying up to date is really like a steep challenge when vulnerability research blogs are posted every day. It's like a lot of staying up to date with what's on, not Twitter, X, what's up to date on a lot of like blogs that we trust. There are a lot of really dedicated, cool researchers out there, and finding the niche researcher that's into the same thing you are really helps.
I think it's a combination of all those. A lot of times the tools that I write for client stuff, I might come up with a quick idea, and I'll just like draft it up real quick, and then win.
Like the one you wrote recently for those.
Yeah, like we had one engagement. This man went on vacation, and I was there, and I was like, yo, I need a tool that will help me quickly enumerate OneDrive files. And so I wrote this little terminal UI thing. It looked pretty cool. It looks pretty cool.
Super handy too.
Yeah, it was just like real quick. I need to go through all these, accounts and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's either the client stuff or like I talk to a lot of people, a lot of the Azure researchers out there. It's a really close knit group of people. And so a lot of the times we may hear ideas or just sit on, of course, X, which is aka twitter.com, or Slack channels. Slack channels are really big because there's a lot of information security Slack channels and Discords and stuff like that. And so just like being able to talk to people who make tools themselves and like come up with ideas is pretty handy, convenient. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. And it's been so exciting to meet all of these people I work with in person for the first time. And we'll be back with the Bishop Fox DEF CON live stream after this break. So I'll see everyone in the audience soon.